Hello and welcome to the Western Skies Scenic Byway in west central Iowa, where my U-Haul trailer chains just fell off because I was not allowed to hook it up myself for some reason. But it's hooked up 100% correctly now because the guy just did the chains like this and didn't put the little rubber things on them, and they're 10 feet long to fit the big trucks, not my car, so all adjusted now, whatever. So, what I'm doing today is picking up a new motorcycle. And I thought, why not just do a quick little video explaining why I picked this one and what my history of motorcycles has been. So, I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. I tend to ramble, but I'll try and talk fast. So, here we go. Alright, so I'll try and put up some pictures of this stuff or video clips so you don't have to stare at my ugly mug the whole time. So, what I'm picking up today, which you'll see in the next video, showing all the details, is a bike that can kind of do everything with a minimal amount of suffering. Jack of all trades, master of none type thing. And you're thinking to yourself, aha, he's getting a KLR 650. No, I'm not. They threw fuel injection on it when they should have thrown the parallel twin out of the Versus into it. If they would have done that, I would have bought one. But anyway, I need to be able to go down the highway relatively easily, see a gravel road or a dirt road off over the horizon and go, where's that going? Zip off down that dirt road, or even a little bit of mild off-road. So my history of bikes that led up to me wanting that kind of motorcycle riding. I started off with this. Oof, greasy teenage years. That was a Yamaha Zuma, I believe it was a 2004, something like that. The transition from four-wheelers to a street-legal moped told me, hey, you can go explore all these places. Because, you know, the four-wheelers gave me that sense of adventure and exploring, and then the moped said, hey, start going out farther. So I'd ride that to school and pick up empty cans and get the 5 cent a can deposit on them to pay for gas and oil, and if I was lucky, even have enough for a snack. But between my junior and senior year of high school, I got a 1982 XJ 650 RJ Yamaha Seika. 1 year import, super difficult to find parts for. I mean, the engine parts, they shared them with Maxims and stuff, that was easy, but finding gas tanks, side covers, brakes, anything specific, seat cowl specific to that bike, good luck. That bike, when I was 17, before my senior year of high school, I went to Sturgis with my dad. He rode his 83 V45 Honda Magna. We rode from western Iowa all the way out to the Black Hills to go to Sturgis to the rally. And that was one of the best trips of my life. I love that I got to share that with my dad. I was wearing some of his hand-me-down gear and luggage on the bike, and that was a wonderful trip. He's going to be retiring soon. He's got like 117,000 miles on his Vulcan Voyager, so hopefully I can do a trip or two with him on my new bike. Probably the Anamosa, Iowa Museum is one that I want to try and do with him. So that really cemented motorcycles in me. Like, I need this as part of my life. I need to explore. I need to do long distance, multi-day touring on bikes. This is wonderful. You know, you leave Iowa, leave the cornfields, and you're riding through the prairie, and then that turns into the Badlands, and then that turns into the pine forest of the Black Hills. It was just wonderful. I just loved everything about it. So when I got my first full-time job, I got a Kawasaki Versus 650. And I took that bike to Colorado twice, got out of a forest fire with it, went to the top of Pikes Peak, Mount Evans, and Rocky Mountain National Park all in one day with it. Did my first motorcycle rally, like a 12-hour scavenger hunt type thing. Won my class. Did my first Saddle Sore 1000 on that bike. I did the Grand Tour, which glmc.org, Glacial Lakes Motorcycle Club. I ran the Grand Tour last year and this year. But I've participated in it as well. So that bike really got me into the competition side of motorcycle riding. And I did all kinds of day trips with it. There were days where I'd ride 300, 400 miles and still go to work all day. So that really got me into the motorcycle addiction. And that bike, it was great, but I wanted more out of it. So what ended up happening was, because it was so bad off-road and in gravel, because of the 17-inch front tire, now they make rims for it. So hindsight's 2020. Had I had more resources at the time, I probably would have just changed the rims on that bike and kept it. But it's not that good off-road. Like, it's not. But what ended up happening was, I was on a trip to Hell and back, Hell, Michigan, and I had a relay go bad, and I was at the Kawasaki dealership in Jackson, Minnesota, using their multimeter to figure out what my electrical issue was. And they had 0% financing on a Kawasaki Concourse. And I thought, ooh, what will you give me on trade-in on the Versas? And they gave me a really good number, and 0% financing on the Concourse, just so they could move them, basically. I thought, yep, that's for me. I'm going to get a high-end sport touring bike. And it was fun. It had all kinds of power. You could hit 130 on the highway on-ramp and still have gears to go. But I didn't like it as much as the Versas. I really didn't. Yes, it was fast. Power windshield was nice. The ergonomics were a bit aggressive for me, but it bored me. It did. I don't know why. Like, it's a fast street bike, but I found it boring. Like, it had no character. But I ended up also, well, I had that bike, buying a Honda CRF 250L, which I enjoyed riding way more than the Concourse. So I sold the Concourse to help finance a move to Minnesota and to start my family, and I kept the dirt bike. That CRF 250L is wonderful. It's the current version of that bike is a 300cc engine. It's all basically the same. And if you leave them stock, they're indestructible. I messed around with mine a lot, and I abused the hell out of it. But the stock engine components, after my big bore went bad, I used a completely stock engine and put a turbocharger on it. And even after that, the stock cylinder, piston, internals were all perfectly fine, within factory new specifications for wear. I never had to adjust the valves or anything on it, so that bike was wonderful. If you can only have one, that's one to look at very seriously. But for me, right now, I need it to be better on the highway, so the 250, 300cc single cylinder dual sports are out. Not enough street ability for me. I will probably end up buying a CRF 300L again someday, just to have a street legal dirt bike. Like if I go out to Moab, you know, Utah area, or if I want to do some of the more difficult trails like the Transamerica Trail, or some of the back route discovery routes, or backcountry discovery routes, BDRs, whatever they are. Some of those you can do on big bikes, some of them you very much cannot. I'm hoping the bike I'm picking up now will be able to do like the DACAL, Dakota Adventure Loop, the TWAT, Trans-Wisconsin Adventure Trail, those sort of things. I really hope this is able to do those things so I don't have to get two motorcycles. But there are some things like off-road parts where you're just going to need a dirt bike. But the goal with this bike I'm picking up, what that trailer's for, is to be able to do everything with minimal suffering. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing motocross tracks, but hopefully I can do some off-road with it. So that CRF 250L was difficult to let go of, but I sold that, and I also had a 1200 Goldwing at the time. I bought that once I was kind of settled in Minnesota, and my now ex-wife and I wanted to start riding motorcycles again. I got this Goldwing 1200 Interstate, kind of the base model, the 1985, I believe. And we were going to start riding motorcycles again. Didn't really happen. I kept the bike after we got divorced, and I rode it to the Iowa Loess Hills, and I rode it out to western Nebraska. I treated it like a race bike between Arnold and Dunning, Nebraska, which it's not a race bike. and on Brownlee Road also. I was riding it really hard. And then I treated it like a dual sport, did a water crossing with it, and I took it out into McKelvey National Forest, out on the 2-track, out in the sand, and it's not a dual sport. I smashed the hell out of my shins on those cylinder heads. But the bike just didn't have the correct ergonomics for me, and I didn't want to spend money on handlebars and a seat, and it also needed a suspension rebuild. That was too much money to put into that bike at that time in my life. So I sold the CRF 250L and I sold the Goldwing to kind of get my life straightened out, get into an apartment, just kind of level everything off a little bit. And then I was without a motorcycle for a while, which is scary. And one of my friends from the motorcycle community said, "Hey, do you want metallic waste? You can have it, just put it back on the road. If you ever get sick of owning it or you don't want it anymore, give it back to me." I said, "Super! Absolutely, I will absolutely do that." So I got my CB750 sidecar, metallic waste, and I've got a whole playlist on that thing. You know, if it was functional and relatively safe, good to go. Didn't really matter what it looked like. So I got that back on the road. I got my kids in the motorcycle again, out on the road. I took it widthwise all the way across Minnesota and back. It's seen better days. The engine that's in it came out of the weeds from behind somebody's garage and then got abused, and then it sat, and then I put carburetors and tires and exhaust on it, and then I abused the hell out of it. And it's starting to use oil and leak oil, and I think it's either cylinder 1 or 4 is having some real issues now. So I'm not currently driving metallic waste. It does run poorly, but it runs. And this spring it's going back to the guy that gave it to me, and potentially to a new owner, I believe. But I'm not going to have metallic waste anymore. It was great. My kids got into it again. I gave the intern girl at work a ride, her first motorcycle ride in it. So that, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And like, you know, my kids started riding, they got their first rides on my CRF 250L, so I'm hoping to keep my kids involved in motorcycle riding. But yeah, metallic waste is in the corner of the garage. I'm gonna go to a new owner soon. I'm on my way right now. I got the U-Haul trailer. I'm nearly to the place where I'm picking up the new bike. So that's my bike history, and you know, the way I like to explore. You know, I like to be able to drive 100 miles and go around a couple of trails, or you know, drive 2 states over and see a dirt road off into the distance, and oh, where's that go, and zoom off on it. So jack of all trades, master of none. I could go over all the reasons why I didn't pick the competitors' bikes, but basically it came down to either they're too heavy, they're too street oriented, or I don't want to spend that much on a motorcycle. So I could have bought a $15,000 bike, but I don't want to run the budget that tight. So things like the Africa Twin, the F750 GS, the V-Strom, the Yamaha Tenere, that one was kind of top heavy too, but those bikes were either too expensive or too heavy. So I ended up with this bike that you're going to see on my channel right after this video. I'll go over all the details of it for you. So I'll see you in the next one.